Let's take a look at our first pentatonic scale shape pattern. As I stated before, learning guitar is hard, so let's take it one step at a time. Let's get this pattern ingrained in our brains before we even pick up the guitar. Everybody talks about how you can visualize these patterns across the fretboard. Well, how do you do that and play at the same time? So let's take it one step at a time here. Take a look at this pattern here. This is the most famous pentatonic scale shape pattern. It is not either a major or a minor version of it at the moment because we haven't identified a root note. But let's just focus on the pattern. If you've got that pattern in your mind and you think you've got it in your mind, well, let's test yourself. Dump out all the pegs and put them in, one at a time where you think they should go. Now, while you're doing this, your brain is learning. You're really ingraining this pattern so that when you pick up the guitar, you'll know exactly where to place your fingers. Now, you could do it top to bottom like I did, or you could go bottom to top. Challenge yourself. See how quickly you can do it? Challenge a friend. So if you can put it in like that, then chances are you're on your way and you're ready to pick up the guitar and give it a shot. But if you can't do it from memory, then doing it while you're playing the guitar at the same time probably isn't going to go so well. So do it again. Dump it out, put them back in. Now that you have that pattern memorized, look at your hand and reference back to the fretboard escalator as required to get through the scale shape. Now, ideally, you want to use a metronome, but don't worry about it at first. Just concentrate on getting the pattern memorized and get your fingers walking and being comfortable. So now the next thing we want to do is look at how we're going to apply this to a song. Well, the first thing you're going to need to ask is, well, what's the key of the song? If the key of the song is major or minor, that's going to depend on where you're going to put this pattern on the fretboard. So let's say someone's playing in the key of F minor. Well, good news. What we do is we take this first note here for the minor. That's where our root note's going to be. That's the one of our scale. If you don't know what I mean by the one of the scale, go back and watch my videos. You'll know exactly what I mean. But for now, I'm going to call it the root. The root note here, or the one note, is for a minor key. Now, if it was a major key, it would actually be this note over here. So that's the root note for the major key. Why am I explaining this? Well, all we have to do is shift this pattern up and down the neck, and then we can play that over top whatever key someone else is playing in when you're at a jam session, or if you're jamming along to a backing track. So let's pretend that someone says, we're going to jam in the key of A major. Perfect. So how am I going to know where to play this on my fretboard? Well, you can take the fretboard escalator and you take the front plate off. And because, like I said, if you're going to do a major key, the root note is here. Minor key, the root note is here. So we said that we were playing in the key of A major. What I do is I slide the A underneath my root note for major. And whatever's left off on this end, I slide over, put it on this end. Replace my front plate, and now I can look at the fretboard escalator and reference it to tell me exactly where to play the pentatonic scale in A major on my keyboard. On my fretboard. So let's go back to our fretboard here, and we've got the same pattern, except A, you can use the dot if you need to, so you've got the dot there. Find that A, that's your pinky. So your pinky is going to depict your major scale position. And now I can just look at my fretboard escalator if I'm a little bit mixed up or lost. So referencing back to that fretboard escalator, I'm going to start with my pinky and I'm going to go through the scale shape. So now you can jam along to any major key backing track, assuming that they're staying diatonic. And let's not go there, but nonetheless, this is how you locate the pattern for major. So now if we want to locate, let's say someone says, we're going to play in the key of G minor. Okay, well, they said minor, so we know that what we have to do is put our root note over here on the left side of the pattern. So now that our root note is here, because they said minor, they said they want to play in a key of, did I say G minor? Let's say A minor, the most common minor key to play in, or at least that's what it feels like to me. A lot of people love playing in A minor. Okay, I'm going to change my view back here. So in order to play in the key of A minor, I know I have to adjust this red note over top the A. So take the front plate off the escalator, slide the A over underneath the red note, and whatever's left off on this end, you put to this end. Okay, so now I am in the key of A minor with the fretboard escalator, and all I have to do is put my first finger on A. So if I don't know where A is, I can just look at the dots. It's my second dot there. And now I start my pentatonic scale shape pattern from there. Okay, so ideally, you want to be able to visualize it without using the fretboard escalator, but don't worry about using it as a crutch, because as we build this out further and further along the fretboard, you're going to want to reference it more, because it's really handy when you pull this out. Whoops. And you can, if you get lost, you can just look down at the fretboard escalator and say, that's where I am. I know where I am. So don't be afraid to use it, to glance at it, but don't allow it to rule your world. Don't be like staring at it going, back and forth. Because if you find yourself doing this, then you don't know the pattern yet. Go back to dumping it out, putting it back in. Get that pattern up in your brain. Okay, what I'm going to do now is expand out to the other scale shape patterns. Let's work on our next scale shape pattern of the pentatonic series. If we look at the fretboard escalator, we've got our A minor pentatonic scale shape pattern, just as we built in the last lesson. Now, there's a whole rest of the fretboard that we want to be able to build out. And to be able to do that by memory before you touch the guitar is going to help you out a lot. So the next pattern over is actually really easy. It's just a straight row of notes all the way down, with one exception, and that's this guy here. And we're back to the straight row of notes all the way down. There, we've just built out that second pattern. Now most people will know that as this. So here's our first pattern, and here's our second pattern. But in actual fact, all our second pattern is an extension of this first pattern. And it's probably more important for you to realize that than it is to play this on its own. Because trying to join them up after, I find it a little bit more difficult than just taking your first pattern and extending it a bit. So I'll show you what I mean. And there's plenty of techniques to practice this. So again, I'm not going to go into detail. I'm not going to show any riffs. But at the end of the day, the way I would practice this is you've got your A minor pentatonic scale shape that you're used to playing. But that would be really boring if all you did is keep doing that and then moved over to your next pattern. Right? You're just playing it vertically. Let's play horizontally. So force yourself to just go. Right? Move down the fretboard, all the way down to the bottom strings. Now, this is going to help you in connecting these patterns, finally putting them together. Now, if you don't know where to go when you're looking at your hands, then you should probably go back, take these pins out, and put them back in a whole bunch more times until it is just completely ingrained in your brain. Okay, so as you know, this is going to work now over an A minor jam track. If you want to change the scale of this and play over a different key, then as you know, it's really easy with a fretboard escalator. Let's change this to G minor. So we just slide the G underneath the red root note, bring this off this end, put it on this end and replace the front plate. And now we're playing as a G minor pentatonic scale shape that will work over any minor chord progression, any commonly found minor chord progression. So if you Google jam track in G minor, and one pops up, you can play this over top of it. Now, You can start out by just playing the scale. And then moving up to the fretboard. And messing around like that. But really, what you want to do, possibly, is just start playing with a little bit of feeling or listening and see what sounds nice to you. Because you're going to notice that some of these notes sound really good, and others are like, they're okay. They're more of a leading note. And we're going to get down to that later on when we start looking at the fully fleshed out fretboard escalator with intervals. But for now, this is a good start. We've just extended our first pattern really easily 2 frets over. Next, we're going to extend it 2 frets to the left. All right, let's extend that pentatonic scale shape pattern to the left 2 frets. It's really easy as well. So what we have here is the fretboard escalator in the key of G minor, but actually I want to switch this to A minor because it's just going to fit better on the screen. So let's just drop that real quick in A minor. It's going to give us a little bit more room to play with on the fretboard escalator. So in the key of A minor, if we want to extend this pattern to the left, the pattern to the left is another really easy one to remember. So I'm just going to put these pins in, and you can do it with me, or you can look up something online that shows you all these different patterns. But this is just how easy it is. The second pattern to the left here is super easy. 2, 2, and 2. Okay, again, how to practice it. Don't practice it linearly, although I suppose you can for finger dexterity and whatnot. But if you're going to just start, let's just line that up a bit better. Just start here, and let's get a guitar in the picture, Steve. And I'm looking at too many things. There's too many screens. Nonetheless, that's your vertical way to practice it. But again, let's say you start here, move down. Right? Oh, see, that sounds wrong. Made a mistake. Now, you might go, that sounds wrong. Well, look at your pentatonic, look at your fretboard escalator and say, where did I go wrong? Oh, I see. It's supposed to be there. Right? Okay, so again, practice linearly. Maybe start all the way over here and see if you can get all the way down. So we got G, we got A, we got C, we got D. You can say the notes out loud, and it'll also teach you the notes of the fretboard. Go to the next string. Do the same on the A string. Say the notes out loud. Or just keep noodling around and connecting the shapes. And just take your time. So, oh, doesn't sound right. Why did I not sound right? Now look at my fretboard escalator and see, oh, I was supposed to be on that string, right? And eventually, you're going to be able to just kind of find a spot you want to be and just... Okay, I'm not going to do... I said I wouldn't do any licks. This has gone too far already. So what we've done is we've built out from our central shape. We've built to the left a really easy pattern, and to the right another really easy pattern. And then looking at them all together, look how much fretboard you can cover now. All right, now there's just a couple more patterns to go, and you'll have the entire fretboard built out. Let's move on to the next scale extension or pentatonic pattern to the right. What I've got here is the fretboard escalator, and I've shifted the key to G sharp minor. The only reason for that, it's kind of a weird key sounding, but it is to give me enough room on the fretboard escalator to show the next pattern properly. So as a recap, we've got the first pattern we learned. We extended this to the right, then we extended to the left. And now we need to extend it one more to the right. So as you recall, I was mentioning how easy this extension is because it's just a row with one half step to the left on the G string. Well, this is just a row as well when you extend to the right. one more extension. It's just a row with one offset half step to the right. It's just on the B string instead of the G string. So here's our first pattern. Here's our extension. Here's our pattern instead of an extension. And here's an extension to that first pattern. So now if I go back, and we could play this as a pattern completely on its own. And that's what people will call that, as a shape or a pattern on its own. So let's do that. We're going to pull that out of the fretboard escalator. And this way we can focus. Now in particular, we're going to play in a vertical fashion here. So we're going to focus on that. We don't have any red notes in here or red pegs. So we haven't decided if this is major, minor, or what key. It's just a pattern. So the way I do this pattern is I use my first finger. Some people may start with their middle finger, but I use my first finger and I just walk down. So there you go. Practice it that way, or maybe your guitar instructor wants you to use your middle finger, in which case you would be going. I don't play it that way, obviously. I use my first finger. But this isn't about technique. This isn't about licks and tricks. You can go to your guitar instructor with this information and say, hey, show me some licks and tricks in this area of the pentatonic position. Okay, so now what we have to do is we're going to put this back onto the fretboard escalator and take a look at just how much area we can cover with just our first pattern, our first extension, and our second extension, and our extension to the left. That is the entire fretboard. The only pattern you're left with now is the one between here and here, where everything repeats. So we'll get to that one next. All right, we've got one more position to look at when we're extending the pentatonic scale across the fretboard. Good news is we don't have to add any more extensions. We've actually placed all the notes in the previous lessons. So what I've got shown here is the minor pentatonic scale, because as you recall, when we use this note as our root note, that is a minor pentatonic scale shape. Right now it's above the F, we're an F minor. Okay. Nonetheless, we recall that we built out the extension to the right with that one row and the one guy slightly to the side, and then another extension with another full row and this guy kind of mirror imaged on the B string. Now there's one more extension here which you may recognize that you've played in the past. If I cover these up, and it looks like this. But here's the cool thing. You already know the left side of this, because do you remember the 2, 2, and 2? In actual fact, if I take all of these and line them up over here, that's that same left-hand side of this shape when we extended to the left. There's the left-hand extension. So all we're really doing is taking the left-hand extension that we built over here and sticking it on the right-hand side of this little pseudo-mirrored one that we had spoken about earlier. So how to practice this? Again, pull a fretboard escalator apart. Let's take the chunk that you want to work on. Let's say you want to work on this entirely on its own before you join it back up. Because there is some value in practicing this sort of fingering style. Not style, but practicing the scale as it is now. And then practice, which would be vertically, and then practicing it linearly. So again, we haven't actually selected if this is major or minor or what key it is, because there's no red dot, there's no root note. Play it anywhere you like. The most comfortable place to play all these patterns is sort of the middle of the neck. It's a bit of a stretch here, this is comfortable, and this gets tight. So let's just start with A. So we go through this pattern. Now, I want you to realize and really look at your hand and look at the fretboard escalator and really see that this shape here is what's happening with your pinky and this finger. Follow that shape with your brain down. So let's just do that. Sorry, I screwed that up, but too much pressure. So you get the idea. I want you to look, and I want you to really feel this right-hand side of the shape. Right hand side of the shape, pinky. Right hand side of the shape, that finger, this finger, pinky, pinky. And now do the same thing with the left hand side of the shape, realizing that that's that straight down row with just that one mirrored B string half step change. So now think about the left side of the shape, or these two fingers. What are they working on? Right? Left side, left side, left side. And then, ooh, we got that half step change back to our straight line here. Okay? So you've just connected all the scale shapes of the pentatonic pattern all the way up and down the fretboard. And it's a lot easier than you think. Use these tools to memorize the patterns so that they're in your head before you even touch the guitar. Now, I don't have to remind you, but it's very important. I'm going to go over it one more time. If I take this root, this is a minor pentatonic scale pattern. Why? Because on our first pattern that we learned, we have depicted that this is minor. If this was the root note was put over here, we gotta stop doing that on the camera. That is going to be major. Okay? So I'll go over that again if you're confused. Someone says to you, let's jam in the key of A minor. What are you going to do? Well, I know that my first position that I learned here, that this note has to be the root note if I'm going to play in a minor key. So first thing I do, I put the red on the left-hand side. Now, what did you say? A minor? No problem. I take the front plate of the fretboard escalator off, and I slide the A underneath the red note. Everything that's left over on the right-hand side comes over to the left-hand side, and you replace the front plate. Now we are in the key of A minor. All right, so now you can play any of these notes. You can practice your patterns that you learned. Play horizontally and vertically. Move from one shape to the next. See how it feels and see how you like it. Now, on the major side of things, let's say someone says, okay, we're going to play in the key of G major. Perfect. It's not a problem. When we go back to our scale shape that we learned at the beginning, this is our minor root note and this is our major root note. So I'm going to quickly put this red root note over here for major. And did you say G major? No problem. I take the front plate, we line the G up with the red root note, and we swap this end over. Perfect. Now you can solo, you can jam, you can noodle around, you can play against backing tracks in the key of G major. Follow the notes on here and you will be within the key of and using the pentatonic scale patterns like never before. All right, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time.